This is the New England Board of Higher Education's Introduction and Application Overview for the State Authorization Reciprocity Agreement, SARA. My name is Rachel Stakoviak. I'm the Program Coordinator at NEBHE. I help to facilitate SARA operations in the region. I work with state agency contacts, the other regional educational compacts, and the National Council for State Authorization Reciprocity Agreements. In this webinar today, I'll give a brief introduction to the New England Board of Higher Education. We'll go through an overview of the SARA institutional membership application. Then we'll talk about the NC-SARA process, which essentially is how to pay your membership fee. And then briefly, I'll touch on some resources for your use. So who is NEBHE? The New England Board of Higher Education, NEBHE, is a nonprofit located in Boston, Massachusetts. We were founded in 1955 by the governors of the 6 New England states. We promote regional cooperation by engaging leaders in the continued assessment, development, and implementation of sound educational practices and policies. Institutions will likely engage with NEBHE or know NEBHE from the Regional Student Program, Tuition Break. This is a tuition reciprocity program which enables access to reduced tuition for specialized degrees among the public institutions in New England. We also have the New England Journal of Higher Education, NEJI, which is an online platform for the latest thinking and analysis by leaders in education in the region. And then we also publish a free weekly education news blast called the News Link. We also run a number of key policy and research initiatives. The Commission on Higher Education and Employability is one of our most recent projects. You can actually sign up on the NEJI News link for a Higher Education and Employability series updates. We also have done projects redesigning student aid, and then we have a problem-based learning, which is a professional and curriculum development program. And then, of course, we have SARA, the State Authorization Reciprocity Agreement. You can learn more about the organization and additional services for institutions at our website at the bottom of the page there, nebhe.org. So how does NEBHE connect to SARA? The SARA agreement was created through a partnership among NEBHE and its 3 regional higher education counterparts, MEC in the Midwestern region, SRAB in the Southern region, and WICHE in the Western region, and a national council. If you're watching this presentation, you are likely aware that SARA was created to resolve the patchwork of authorization issues, which have to be monitored by institutions engaging in distance education activities in multiple states and territories. The beauty of SARA is that it's created consistent definitions and practices that are adopted by participating states that benefit the institutions applying to their state. So it's important to remember that first, a state must join by applying to their regional compact, such as NEBHE, and then the institutions join by applying to their state's designated portal, and the state will designate that particular portal when they apply to become SARA members. So SARA membership is voluntary for states and institutions. States renew with their compact every 2 years, institutions renew every year. But in short, a state must join the agreement first, and then institutions become members through this state. We're going to move forward to the application process. Before I dig into the application itself, I want to mention that I'll reference the SARA Policies and Standards manual throughout the presentation. And you can visit this website listed on our slide here to download the important document. This link is included in a list of resources and hyperlinks referenced in this presentation on the NEBHE website as well. The institutional application process is included in the SARA manual, as well as other policies and standards that you should familiarize yourself with before you submit your SARA membership application to your state. So where can we find the SARA application? In addition to your state education agency's website, when they become a SARA member, they'll post a link to the SARA application. You can also find it at ncsara.org. You'll look under the document section, and then down at the bottom you'll see the application for institutional approval to participate in SARA. So if you remember, I just mentioned about how the agreement creates standard and consistent definitions and practices adopted by participating states. Working in that same theme of consistency, I'll mention that the application is the same, regardless of the state where your institution is located or the type of institution. So public, private, or for-profit, it doesn't matter. It's the same application for membership. In order to be eligible to participate, an institution must be a degree-granting institution that's physically located in the United States, hold authorization from Congress, a U.S. state, or a federally recognized Indian tribe, and hold accreditation by a single entity from an association recognized by the U.S. Department of Education. So there are essentially three components to the application, and it's intended to be as simple as possible. So we have qualifying questions, which confirm the core requirements, such as the institution's location, accreditation, and the institution's financial health, and those all require documentation. There's a series of affirmational statements where the institution is agreeing to and confirming compliance with SARA's standard practices. And then finally, a space for supplemental documentation or related state-specific materials. Here we have our infographic illustrating the institutional approval process for SARA participation. As I had mentioned, when a state joins SARA, they designate someone in their Department of Higher Education or Department of Education, depending on what state you're located in. This person oversees the review and approval of institutional participation. They're called the State Portal Entity, or SPE. And then in steps 2 and 3, looking ahead here, you'll see that the State Portal Entity receives and reviews the application for participation. They also serve as your primary point of contact for SARA questions, and will remain the contact through the annual renewal application process. I'll also add that you're welcome to reach out to your regional compact or NC SARA with general SARA questions. We're all happy to help along the way. Your designated state portal entity's contact information can be found in 2 different places. The first on the NEBHE website, we have SARA in our top menu and just select regional information. Or you can visit ncsara.org and you'll see they have a list of state portal entity contacts in their contacts section. You also can look on the state-specific page on the NC SARA website. Here is the first page of the SARA application. So questions 1, 2, and 3 are those qualifying questions that require documentation. Question 1 documents your institution's location. So this is the state in which your institution is legally domiciled and what's called the home state in SARA policies and standards. Documentation could be a copy of your OPEID number, which can be obtained from your academic affairs or financial aid offices. Articles of incorporation or even your institution's charter could also document your institution's location for the purposes of this application. Question 2 affirms that your institution is accredited by an accrediting body approved by the U.S. Department of Education. Institution should enclose its official letter of accreditation with its application. The accreditor has to include distance education in its scope and be in one of two categories. The first being a regional or national accrediting agency, or the second category, a specialized accrediting agency. A list of approved accreditors is available on the U.S. Department of Education's website, ope.ed.gov/accreditation. And then question 3 demonstrates your institution's financial stability. You'll see on the application that public institutions are presumed to be financially stable for the purposes of SARA. So publics can skip this question. If you're a non-public institution, you are required to have a financial responsibility index score of 1.5 or above to be eligible. SARA uses the most recently published financial score that's published on the studentaid.ed.gov website. Oftentimes your financial aid officer will be able to give you documentation of the financial score that should be submitted with your application. An institution with a score between 1.0 and 1.49 may be admitted provisionally should your state find the institution to be financially sound. Institutions in that range, again 1.0 to 1.49, should contact their respective state portal entity to ask what specific documentation may be required for membership consideration. And then additional information can be submitted on page 8 of the application. And then quickly, I'll just point out at the top corner of the page, you'll select your regional compact. Again, if you're in New England, it will be NEBHE, the New England Board of Higher Education. And then you also will include the institution's name on the top right-hand corner of each page. And then on the bottom left, you'll see there's a space for the CEO or CAO to initial on all of the prompts, numbers 1 through 14. So your signatory agent will initial in that spot. And then over on the right-hand side, this is reserved for your state portal entity to complete. So the institution does not have to check off yes or no in either box there. The signatory agent, the CEO or CAO, as I noted on the previous slide, should be aware of how your institution complies with each statement on the application and the requirements of SARA policies and standards prior to signing the document. So as a best practice, you should be prepared to walk the signatory agent through each prompt and explain or show how your institution complies if they aren't already aware. This includes the statements on the application, including those CRAC guidelines, but also SARA policy and standards. The bullet points on this slide just are there to assist in thinking about the full scope of responsibility. Here we are on page 2 of the application. I'm just going to go down these questions and elaborate briefly on some points. So we'll see question 4 here. The institution is agreeing to abide by the interregional guidelines for the evaluation of distance education. Those are the CRAC guidelines. They are included with your application, and I'm going to come right back to this point when we get down to that page. Question 5. The institution's agreeing to be responsible for the actions of any third-party providers used by the institution to engage in operations under SARA. Generally, this point is already covered in many third-party provider contracts that you may have with a provider. but you should be aware that this is a requirement of SARA, and I'd encourage you to look at the complete policy in Section 5 of the SARA manual. Question 6, you agree to notify the home state portal entity, that's the same person you're submitting this application to, of any negative change to your institution's accreditation status. Question 7, you agree to provide data necessary to monitor SARA activities, including annual reporting of distance education enrollments by state. This is an annual requirement of your membership. The NC SARA national reporting takes place every spring and is based off of the same data set you submit to IPEDS. Further information about this process, including a webinar and FAQs published by the National Council, are available in the PDF resource document I'm providing with this presentation. Question 8, you agree to work with your home state's portal entity to resolve any complaints arising from students in SARA states. Very important here, the institution will supply a link to the complaint system on the 4th page of the application. And I'll just point out the asterisks at the bottom of the page here. It is the institution's initial responsibility to investigate and resolve a complaint prior to referring the student to the state under SARA procedures. Both grade and student conduct appeals are not covered under SARA, but it should be clear to the student in your complaint policy where they can turn for a resolution outside of the institution. Question 10, SARA requires that any courses or programs leading to professional licensure include a disclosure to prospective and enrolled students if the course or program meets state licensing requirements. So by initialing question 10, your institution is agreeing to comply with this statement in one of 2 ways. You can identify in writing that the course or program meets professional licensure requirements where the student or applicant resides. And then 2, make all reasonable efforts to make that determination. However, if you are unsuccessful, you need to notify the applicant or the student that you cannot confirm if the course or program meets requirements in their state, and you'll need to provide current contact information for any applicable state licensing board. And the applicant or student should be advised that they need to determine eligibility in the state where they live. I'll emphasize that it's important to read NC SARA's policies and standards. Section 5 describes coverage and limitations and includes a couple examples or more specifics that may be helpful for your particular institution. And that's policy 5.2 in that manual. Looking ahead here, question 11, you agree in cases where the institution cannot fully deliver the instruction for which a student has contracted to provide a reasonable alternative for delivering instruction. So essentially, you are prepared for some type of teach-out plan. Question 12, you need to agree to pay the state any fees for SARA participation required by the home state for administering SARA. Not all states have a state fee, but you can find that information on your state portal entity website or further along in this presentation. Question 13, you agree to pay your annual SARA participation fee to the National Council, which we'll cover further along in the presentation. And then finally, question 14, you agree to abide by conditions of provisional approval if necessary. Here we are on page 3 of the application. The institution simply completes the blanks on the page. I'll make a couple of specific points. You'll see that here your institution will record your latest FTE based on what you submitted to IPEDS, FTE full-time enrollment. Your state portal entity will verify this number as it correlates directly to annual state fees and then also mandatory national council fees. The principal and secondary contacts, so we see two places where you're putting contact names, okay? They are the contacts who receive automated notifications from the National Council. This is very important. You put both contacts and also both have accurate information, including that telephone number. And then you must absolutely update your state portal entity if these contacts change, even if it's temporary, if it's a leave of absence. But they are the two people who will be receiving notifications from the National Council. And those include enrollment reporting notifications as well as renewal reminders. Very important. And then finally, you'll see that, as I had said, this is where the institution will include a link to the complaint system. I talked a little bit about complaints already, but I'd encourage you to read through Section 4 of the SARA manual. Moving forward to pages 4 through 7 of the application, again, back on page 4, or sorry, question 4 on page 2, the institution abides or agrees to abide by these guidelines. The CRAC guidelines are already part of regional accreditation, so this is most likely familiar material to you already. Your institution certifies that it adheres to the bold number points on this application, and you should submit all of these pages with your application. As a best practice, the signatory agent should be aware of the guidelines and, again, how your institution complies before they sign the application. But I'll emphasize that no additional documentation related to CRAC specifically is required as part of the SARA application. And then moving ahead, you'll see on page 8, this is reserved for state information. This is the only area on the application where the content could vary from state to state, and that's just because some states have different fees or schedules. A bonding requirement could be included for an independent institution. And then if you needed to provide additional financial responsibility information. And here is our state supplemental sheet. I'll echo what I had said on the previous slide. This is your place to add any information related to a state fee or schedule, potentially if there's a bonding requirement, maybe if you're an independent institution that could be required, and then any additional information regarding your financial responsibility composite score. And I'll go right on page 8. And finally, page 9 is left blank for your state agency. So you may leave it blank, but be sure to submit it with your application. And then just a quick reminder here, the complete application submission must include CEO or CAO initials in questions 1 through 14, CEO or CAO signature on page 3, submission of all pages 1 through 9 that includes the complete CRAC guidelines and that last state portal information page, a copy of the institution's official letter of accreditation, and then any applicable state fees or additional documentation requested by your state agencies. That might be if your financial score is between 1.0 and 1.49, you may need additional documentation. If you are in New England, most entities receive the application and supporting materials by email or snail mail, but you're welcome to check with your state agency on their preference. My understanding is that once Massachusetts joins, they'll have an online portal for institutional applications. So you can keep your eyes peeled for that. Okay, now that we've concluded the application overview, we're going to transition to the NC SARA process. We're going to revisit our infographic here and just see in step 3, our portal entity has approved the application and we move forward in the NC SARA process. So that means a payment link is going to be sent to the 2 institutional contacts identified on your SARA application. The email will come from info@ncsara.org. And then in step 4, you, the institution, will activate the link in order to pay the NC SARA membership fee. And again, that's an annual mandatory membership fee that's paid to the National Council, and it's based off of the institution's full-time enrollment. So you'll see a list of fees right over here on our slide. And again, I'll remind you, some states do have a state fee that is in addition to the National Council fee. So again, I'll reiterate, the portal entity will approve the institution. The institution's contacts will be added into the NC SARA database, and then that will trigger the approval system, which is these auto-generated emails, okay? And then the institution will need to take action and click the link in that approval email, and that will send them to an institutional information form. Here's a sample email of what the institutional membership approval looks like from NC SARA. So you'll see it's congratulatory email, very nice message. You'll click pay here to access the form itself. And then here's what the form looks like. So you'll need to confirm the information on the top portion of the form. And I'll reiterate here, you need to reach out to your state portal entity if there is an error on the top portion of this form. They need to correct it. You'll select your annual fee to participate, and then you'll select submit. And then here, it will send you to the select method of payment page. So you'll see your institution name, the fee based on your FTE that you just selected, and then you can also access NC SARA's W-9 form right here. You'll select that you wish to pay by credit card online, or you can pay by mail. I'll emphasize that this notification email and this link to get to your method of payment, selecting your method of payment, is only sent to the 2 institution contacts listed on your application. So you may need to either forward the email to your accounts payable department or download the W-9 and send that to them. So when the institution completes the form, the institution contacts are emailed a system-generated invoice from NC SARA with payment details. Again, I'll remind you that there's an NC SARA fee in addition to a state fee. And state fee questions can be directed to your state portal entity, and you are not a member until both of these fees are processed. In New England, states who have a fee include Connecticut, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, and Rhode Island. When Massachusetts joins, there will be a state fee. And as of spring 2018, institutions in Maine and Vermont do not pay a state fee. Here's a sample of the system-generated invoice. So again, that will go to the institution contacts listed in Salesforce, the NC SARA database. And then here we are back at our infographic. You'll see in step 5 that NC SARA confirms payment and sends welcome materials to the institution. And the institution is also listed on the NC SARA website. Okay, so we're almost there. And then once your payment is processed, you'll receive 2 separate emails from NC-SARA. One is a receipt of payment, and the second is a welcome message, which serves as your SARA member documentation, and that also gives you access to NC-SARA logos that can go on the institution's website. And here's a sample of the NC-SARA welcome letter. Again, that will come by email to the 2 contacts listed on your institution application form. And finally, here we are in step 6. And this is a reminder that your institution, once approved, will need to renew annually to maintain its participation. And again, those are renewal notifications that go out automatically to those 2 contacts listed on your institutional application form by email. You'll receive a notification both 90 and 30 days prior to expiration. A list of resources and hyperlinks cited in this presentation are available at nebhe.org in the SARA presentation section. And then any questions about this presentation, you can reach out to me. Again, I'm Rachel Stakoviak. I'm the program coordinator at the New England Board of Higher Education. You'll see my email address there and my phone number. And don't hesitate to reach out. We're happy to help at any time. Thanks so much.